All right, today we're diving deep into what is, without a doubt, the most complex and incredible structure in the known universe. And here's the kicker. It's inside every single one of us. We're talking about the nervous system. It is the command center that runs the entire show that is you, and we're about to take a journey to see how it works, from the massive system all the way down to a single electrical signal.
So let's just start with a question. The very act of you thinking about the answer, the feeling of the device you're holding, the decision you made to learn something new today, what's behind all of it? What one system is pulling all the strings for every single part of your experience?
You guessed it, it's the nervous system. And there's really no better way to put it than this. It is the master controller and communicating system in the body. It's not just some part of you, like an organ. In a very, very real way, it is you.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big picture, what are its main jobs? Then we'll draw a map of its major divisions. From there, we're going to zoom all the way in, to the individual cells. Then we'll see how those cells send signals, and finally, we'll pull it all back together to see how all this stuff creates our sensations and lets us interact with the world.
Okay, first things first. Let's talk about what this master controller is actually doing every single second of every single day to keep you alive, thinking, and moving.
Now, this quote here is way more profound than it sounds. It's not just about, lifting your arm or walking. It means your entire personality, your memories, your hopes, your fears, all of it is a direct reflection of the electrical and chemical activity zipping around inside this network. You can pretty much boil down its entire job to this really elegant three-step loop that's happening constantly. First, sensory input. It's gathering information. It's like millions of tiny sensors monitoring everything from the light in the room to the pressure in your feet. Step 2 is integration. The brain and spinal cord take all that data and ask, okay, what does this mean? Do we need to do anything about it? And if the answer is yes, that leads to step 3, motor output. A command gets sent out that activates a response, telling a muscle to contract or a gland to release a hormone. It's a seamless cycle. Sense, decide, and act, over and over again. So we have a handle on what it does. But where is everything? How is this incredible network actually laid out in our bodies? Let's pull up the map.
Okay, structurally it's pretty simple to start. It's split into two main parts. First, you have the central nervous system, or CNS. That's the brain and spinal cord. Think of this as your body's main computer, the central processor where all the big decisions get made. Then you have the peripheral nervous system, the PNS. This is everything else. It's all the nerves that branch out from the brain and spinal cord, acting like a vast network of cables connecting that central computer to every single part of your body.
And if we were to look inside the CNS, you'd see two kinds of stuff. You've got gray matter and white matter. Gray matter is where the processing happens. It's packed with the main cell bodies of the neurons. But white matter, that's made of the long, cable-like parts of the neurons, all wrapped up in a white, fatty insulation. So here's the key takeaway. Gray matter is the computer, and white matter is the high-speed wiring that connects all the components.
Now, let's zoom in, like way in. What are these tissues actually made of? We're going down to the cellular level to meet the two main characters that make this whole operation possible.
So all of this nervous tissue is basically built from two types of cells. You've got the neurons, the famous ones. These are the messengers, the rock stars that actually transmit the electrical signals. But, and this is a big but, they absolutely could not do their job without the neuroglia, or just glia for short. Think of the glia as the essential behind-the-scenes support crew. They protect, insulate, and feed the high-strung neurons so they can do what they do best.
And this support crew has a bunch of specialists. You've got astrocytes, these cool star-shaped cells that hold neurons in place and carefully manage the chemical environment of the brain. Then you've got the insulators. In the central nervous system, that job goes to the oligodendrocytes. But in the peripheral nervous system, it's the Schwann cells. Same job, different location. A super important distinction. And finally, epidermal cells line all the fluid-filled cavities in your brain and spinal cord. It just goes to show you every single cell has a very specific, vital role to play.
Okay, so we've met the players. Now for the action. How does a signal, a thought, a feeling, a command to move, actually travel through this system? The journey of a signal along one neuron is strictly a one-way street. It all starts at the dendrites. Think of them like tiny antennas that pick up the incoming message. That signal then travels toward the cell body, which is kind of like the neuron's headquarters. From there, it gets fired down a long cable called the axon, shooting the impulse away from the cell body. And at the very end of that axon, these little terminals release chemicals, neurotransmitters, to pass the message on to the next cell in line. Hey, remember our support crew, the glial cells? Well, this is their masterpiece, the myelin sheath. It's a fatty layer that wraps around the axon, but it's not a solid tube. It's more like a series of little insulating blankets. And this is absolutely critical, because it forces the electrical signal to jump from one gap to the next, which is way, way faster than just traveling down the whole length. This insulation allows a signal to travel up to 200 miles an hour without losing any power. Incredible.
So how does the signal get from one neuron to the next one? It can't just jump across empty space. Well, that tiny junction is called a synapse, and there's a microscopic gap there, the synaptic cleft. So to get across, the electrical signal triggers the release of those chemical messengers we mentioned, the neurotransmitters. They float across that tiny gap, latch onto the next neuron, and kick off a brand new electrical signal. It's this beautiful and ridiculously fast conversion, from electrical to chemical and right back to electrical again.
All right, we have journeyed from the entire system all the way down to a single tiny synaptic gap. Now, let's zoom back out and see how these lightning-fast pathways actually create our experience of the world.
Information in the nervous system basically flows in two main directions. You have sensory or afferent neurons. They carry signals that are arriving at the central nervous system. These are the inroads, coming from your skin, your eyes, your muscles. Then you have motor or efferent neurons. They carry commands that are exiting the central nervous system. They are the outroads, telling your body what to do. Just remember, afferent arrives, efferent exits.
And that brings our entire journey full circle. We started with the big idea. The nervous system is the body's master controller. We saw it's divided into a central processor, the CNS, and a peripheral network, the PNS. We learned that network is built from neurons that send the signals, all supported by a whole crew of glial cells. We followed that signal, watching it race down an axon as an electrical impulse and then leap across a synapse as a chemical message. And we saw how that constant flow of information, from sensory input to motor output, is literally what allows us to perceive and act in our world.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Your brain alone has trillions of these connections. That's more connections than there are stars in our entire galaxy. It is by far the most complex object we have ever discovered in the universe. So what does it really mean that your consciousness, your identity, your very sense of you, is the sum total of all these tiny electrical flashes firing away in the dark? It's a pretty amazing thing to think about.